Let me begin with a quick disclaimer. I've shared in the past that, my people, Stan and our daughter Annie, sometimes proof and edit my homilies. This week, Annie did more than that. She actually helped to craft the message. She did ask that I extend on her behalf Mother's Day greetings to all who are celebrating today. She's celebrating by sleeping. All kidding aside, she is doing dinner for my parents and the rest of the family later today. But I want to focus today on the last sentence of the reading that Mary Wissert read, which states that Philip, the evangelist, who was one of the original 7 deacons in the early church, had 4 unmarried daughters who prophesied. Now, one might think, since that's the end of our reading today, that later on in Acts, Luke elaborates on those 4, but no, they are not named. There's no additional information. That's it. Philip had 4 unmarried daughters who prophesied. So does anyone think it's a coincidence that multiple places Paul and those traveling with him ended up that there just happened to be seers and women who prophesied and foretold the future? The fact that they're even mentioned is an indicator that women prophets were prevalent in the early church community. Clearly, most of us missed that message growing up. And although scripture never again mentions the 4 unmarried daughters of Philip, other historical sources, including Eusebius and Papias, like really come up with tough names, but Eusebius really was an early Christian historian, and he kind of put the chronology of the church from the time of Christ forward. He was the first one to kind of publish that. Later in life, he was excommunicated, but okay, stuff happens back then as well as now. But both Eusebius and Papias refer to these 4 daughters as great lights and mighty luminaries. So you get the sense that these 4 daughters were pretty well known and sought out by the people. In the early church, before what we know as the New Testament even existed, this was how the message was carried orally. Both men and women prophets provided nurturing and guidance, instruction, encouragement, and comfort. So scholars believe that the nameless daughters were known as Hermione long before Harry Potter, right? Eutychus, Iris, and Sherilyn. Eusebius actually referred to Philip's daughters as the benchmark or standard for prophetic ministry. The Reverend Deborah Moody Bass, in her book, The Female Prophets of the Bible, observes, quote, "Some scholars believe that Luke had no choice but to mention Philip's daughters because of their prominence in the community." So of the 4 daughters, the most has been written about Hermione, who founded a medical clinic devoted to treating the poor and homeless in Ephesus, which was a port city in what we now know as modern Turkey. In addition to having the gift of prophecy, Hermione ministered to people's bodies and spirits. Now, oral tradition has it that later in life, Hermione was summoned by emperors who tortured and attempted unsuccessfully to kill her, initially by throwing her into a vat of boiling sulfur and asphalt, and later attempting to have her beheaded. But paralysis struck the hands of the guards. How many times, though, throughout history have women been murdered or silenced for their intuitive gifts? Have you ever wondered why most of these victims have been women and not men? Really, what is so scary about gifted and powerful women? Many of us in the Philadelphia area are acutely aware, especially if they have a daughter who's 26, that tonight, hometown favorite, Taylor Swift's third concert of her Eras tour is happening at Lincoln Financial Field. Certainly, if you live in South Philly, you're aware of it because roads had to close as a result of the amazing and overwhelming crowds that showed up Friday. These are not the concerts most of us grew up with, you know, pay $30, go and see somebody perform. These are productions, and each show lasts more than 3 hours, consisting of 44 songs divided into 10 acts, which rely on world building, using specific fashions and props and aesthetics to journey through the musical eras of Taylor's career. And understand, Taylor got her name from James Taylor. Many of us might remember as a musician and songwriter. And the idea, her mother said, we thought providing her a gender neutral name would help her in business. Okay, I don't know whether it's her name, but she's done pretty well. Okay. So at the age of 33, Taylor has released 10 albums and has the distinction of being the only woman to make Forbes's list of the top 10 highest earning entertainers. In 2022, she made, wait for it, 92 million. Okay. Taylor distinguishes herself, though, by catering to people who have historically been left out of the conversation. The majority of her fan base are women and gay men under the age of 40. She understands her multi-generational audience and communicates in a manner that resonates with each group. So why, when the media covers Taylor Swift, do we only hear about her romantic connections, or that she's boy crazy, or selfish in her ongoing feud with record labels? Perhaps, like the four prophetesses, she has been unjustly minimized. Imagine if Hermione and her sisters had social media at their disposal. What a threat that would pose to those who attempted to silence their voices. Despite all the criticism that Taylor Swift experiences, her fans resonate with her stories. They travel from different states and even countries to hear her. None of this would be possible if Taylor had lived back in the days when Hermione and her sisters lived. Point. We live in the context of what's around us. Through Taylor's music, you'll hear stories of a teenage girl experiencing first heartbreak, a young woman falling in love, and a mature songwriter redefining herself. As Taylor explained in her documentary, early in her career, and I quote, label executives would say, a nice girl doesn't force their opinions on people. A nice girl smiles, waves, and says thank you. Taylor believed that was the cost of fame. However, as she matured, Taylor chose to be true to herself and find and use her voice. She explains, I want to love glitter and also stand up for the double standards that exist in our society. I want to wear pink and tell you how I feel about politics. I don't think those things have to cancel each other out. Imagine the threat that this poses to the status quo, that a woman with this much influence and power, who can sell out 3 straight nights at Philadelphia's largest entertainment venue, could potentially encourage her fans to speak their minds just as she has. This was the threat that those who silenced Hermione and her sisters feared. So on this, the last day of Philadelphia's Eras Tour, let's remember that Taylor Swift stands on the shoulders of all the women who came before her. Let's hope that she continues to inspire generations of future changemakers. God bless you all.